No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve post-game show starts now.
That's the wrong intro. Should I start again?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. We're going to start again. Good morning, everyone.
More than a decade, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now.
Well, we're off to a riveting start as per usual on this Saturday morning.
We're having as good a start as the Winnipeg Jets were last night.
That's right, exactly. Oh, this well-oiled machine that we call Illegal Curve Hockey churns on. Certainly no warning signs. There's nothing flashing on our dashboard saying you might want to pull over and see if the engine needs to be lubricated or anything like that. But good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba, and for all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Maybe I'll bring back the NHL midweek intro. We can play that one next, just for the hell of it. You know,
and Helly We Trust is asking for a third intro here. Drew,
intro, just random intros. We'll just keep, for the next 2 hours. Yeah, we don't need to talk about the Jets. We know what's happening with the Jets. We'll just keep doing different intros over the last 14 or so years. How about that? That would be a good show, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Drew. Yeah, let's do it again. We need to wake up. Obviously, the Jets weren't awake for the majority of that game, so we need to wake up again. I've got my coffee here, but yeah, it's all good. Let's go. We have lots to talk about.
Let's go. Exactly. Lots to talk about. We say, I am Drew Mindell, your host. Dave Minuk in the top right. Ezra Ginsburg in the bottom middle. All our friends are here in the chat room. We do appreciate you joining us on this Saturday morning.
Well, we only have 4 friends between the 3 of us, so that's not a lot of friends, right?
Doesn't matter. Friends are friends. You don't have to. It's not about the quantity of friends, Mr. Ginsburg. It's about the quality of those friends.
That's what I say as well. Yeah.
And the quality.
I say quantity.
You say quantity? Well, that explains
Dave
the quality
likes those
of your relationships, Dave.
Yeah, I like superficial relationships, but lots of them.
That's good. There you go. Look, everyone's got their own strategy. Everyone's got their own game plan.
What do you think you two bozos are?
I don't know. I acquaintances at best. I know that.
Hey, Dave, I might be a bozo, but
I prefer the term. I prefer when people ask. I'm like, oh, they're more like frenemies.
Frenemies, also totally reasonable. Arch enemies, things like that. I like it. It's all.
We know Spencer's a friend of ours because not only did he add a great show topic, he managed to segue us for at least a good 5-10 minutes talking about ice cream last night.
Yeah, ice cream and bridges. That was what you missed on last night's Illegal Curve post-game show. You didn't want to miss much more because the Jets absolutely.
The bridges of Illegal Curve.
Yeah, the Jets absolutely stunk it up in Edmonton, as we talked about last night. We'll talk about again this morning. The trade deadline. Obviously, we touched on that yesterday. Now that we sit here, sort of another. It's more in the rearview mirror. Obviously the intensity of the day, can maybe cloud judgment or can cloud opinions. But as we sit here now this morning, having had a good night's sleep, or at least a night's sleep, whether or not it was good or not, I couldn't tell you one way or the other.
It was a sleep.
It was a sleep, exactly. Has not that your opinion would have changed about the Jets' approach, but do you maybe understand the thinking anymore from their perspective? Walk a mile in True North's shoes. Can you see
a mile?
Well, okay. As you walk to the fridge in True North's shoes. How about that?
Yeah.
Can you maybe understand their approach any more than you could last night, or is it still sort of as befuddling as we thought it was? Is it still as incomprehensible as we thought it was? Is it still this team just doesn't seem to be on a path to anywhere right now? Because that's sort of the feeling that I still have. I went back and I was watching Chevy's press conference this morning just to hear it again. You in the fog of war, maybe you miss nuance, maybe you miss aspects of it, or maybe things are interpreted slightly different. To me, it's still an organization that is lurching with no ultimate game plan, because if the goal is just to run this back again next season, I don't know how that makes you any further ahead than you are yesterday.
You mentioned befuddling, Drew, and incomprehensible. Like, I mean, those are pretty strong words. Like, I just don't think he acquired as many players as I and many people thought he would, right? And like, it's not that he didn't do anything. Like, Nino Niederreiter and Vladislav Nemestikov is not nothing. Like, and like, nothing would have been acquiring depth forwards that are more suited for the Manitoba Moose, right? Like, so this whole notion that he didn't do anything is not true. There's a big difference between not doing anything and not doing enough. I've been saying this for months now, that the Jets need another shutdown defenseman. I'm not the only person. I'm sure that the Jets were, making some phone calls and talking to other GMs, other teams, right? So, like, to me, that was the most disappointing, that you didn't augment this defensive group. Like, I like a lot of the personalities and the players that the Jets currently have. We know Josh Morrissey's having his career year. Brent Dillon's having a better year. I think Dylan Stanberg has established himself as a third pairing defenseman. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays tonight at Canada Life Center. Logan Stanley was not good. I'm not sure why Stanley came in for Dylan Stanberg. I'm not sure if there was an injury, but as far as I'm concerned, Stanberg is ahead of Stanley on the depth chart right now, boys. But getting back to the trade deadline, it's not confusing to me, Drew, because look, I don't know how many players were out there, guys, that would have, given you those Paul Stastny in 2018 vibes, right? Like, I just don't know how many players there are out there. Like, would it have been nice if the Jets acquired Max Domi? And would it have been nice if the Jets acquired Jacob Chychrun? I don't even know if adding those two players would have put the Jets into the Stanley Cup contender status. I think they're much more than just one or two impact players away.
Well, you talk about Jacob Chychrun, Ezzy. Okay, let's talk. Let's mention him, because you talk about an impact player. That's an impact acquisition. But
he's not Roman Josi. He's not he's not Victor Hedman. He's a good defenseman, but I feel like we've hyped him up to the point where like it's like Jacob Chychrun is a top 5 defenseman in the NHL.
No, but he would have.
I don't think he's anywhere close to that.
But he would have improved the Winnipeg Jets.
He would have, absolutely, but I'm saying he would, like, what are we talking about here, right? We're talking about making improvements or, being a Stanley Cup contender. I just don't think, look, if Jacob Chychrun was on this roster right now, would we say the Jets are a Stanley Cup contender? I would not.
But just the message that it sends, Dave, to the fan base and to the dressing room, it improves your organization. It doesn't just improve your organization for this year. There's term on that contract. It improves your organization moving forward. And it doesn't have to be Chychrun in particular. So just forget about the specific name, but just the message that it sends and the ability to go out and say, yes, I'm good. I'm not mortgaging the future, because the price that the Senators paid is not an unreasonable price in my estimation.
It would have been higher for the Jets. Just worth noting, though, it would have been higher for the Jets.
Okay, so maybe it would have been higher for the Jets. I mean, maybe it would have involved a roster player. Maybe, who knows? But the team is always about half measures, and this was a year when a half measure wasn't sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
I
agree with you. I mean, the reality, Drew, I think what you're getting towards is that if you were going to commit to this core group, and you're going to commit to trying to win basically for the next 2 years with this core group, then you have a responsibility to augment it in a way that shows that it's going to overcome its deficiencies, because the Jets just don't have enough depth. We've talked about this, as he's not wrong. The fact is that's what we were thinking the Jets were going to do, was try and provide this team with the depth they've needed to, have some more scoring in the top 6, maybe have some more scoring on that third line. And like, as he's not wrong, to have more depth on D. And I think that's one of those situations where they needed to, show it to the fans and show it to because I mean, I can understand that you're in a slide. I mean, the funny part is it's not like a slide is like 5 games. Yeah, I mean, this is 30 games, guys. I mean, the Jets are 15, 16 and 1 in their last 32 games. So, I mean,
they've also only won 6 of their last 18. And last time I checked, that's 33% of their games have been
right. Won. So my point is that it's not as if, I guess what I would say is I don't think that Kevin Cheveldayoff came in with a plan and in the last 3 games said, oh, well, now I can't do it because these guys have not been succeeding. It's you look at the body of work for the last 32 games. I mean, Ezzy, that's like 3 months. That's not an insignificant period of time. That's essentially half the season, because we know the Jets went 29-1 to in the first 30 games. So we know that their second half of that frame of time is terrible, essentially. So, you do have to wonder, well, one, if you're the GM and you recognize your team is on a slide, you have to do some sort of hard analysis. And I think the problem that the fans have, and I don't want to speak for everyone, but this is my conjecture, would be that nobody likes being, it's like, what are my lying eyes not telling me? Like, everyone in this market pays attention. They wake up with us, on a Saturday morning. They go to bed with us at 2 a.m. They pay attention. They come to the website, illegalcurve.com. The fact is, everyone knows what's going on with the Jets. So you're not going to tell them, you're not going to spoon feed them BS and have them be like, oh, well, he said this, so I automatically believe that, that's what is happening with this market. Because the truth is, people have been watching this team, again, for the last 32 games, 3 months, sliding. And again, you can arrest a slide after 5 games, after 10 games. But the mediocrity that folks have been subjected to watching for the last few months has been significant. And again, like I said, so if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, you knew that, and you either have to give a frank assessment and say, listen, and I understand it's hard to sell. I understand that, it's hard to try and get fans in the seats on a Tuesday night to when it's cold to watch a hockey game when the team is middling. But I just think I think the Rangers approach when they did that retool, and I'm not saying the Jets needed to do that. I'm just saying the approach isn't the one that I think, and I think that's what struck so many with the tenor of yesterday's press conference with Kevin Cheveldayoff. It was kind of like he was trying to sell people a false bill of goods, and folks are like, no, we're not buying what you're selling.
Right. And you're 100% right, boys, and Dave specifically here. And I think when you look at the Jets and you mentioned fans and, observers from afar and everything like that, like, it's no, surprise that the Jets have not been good the last few months, right? You mentioned it. They've won 6 of their last 18. They've been 500 for the last 2.5, 3 months. But I think fans right now would assess this Jets team as it's probably good enough to get into the playoffs, but we don't even know if they're going to be good enough to beat a team in the first round, regardless if it's Colorado or Dallas or Minnesota. I think that's, maybe I'm wrong here, but I think most Jets fans and observers of this team, including us and Winnipeg Sports Talk and Kenny and Rennie, would say, yeah, this team has enough skill and they're underachieving, but do we really think this team is built for a long playoff run? I mentioned this last night, the one player, and again, it's a moot point because Matthias Ekholm was traded to the Oilers, but that is one player where you can put in that defense in the top 4 on the left side. So now your left side is Morrissey, Ekholm, and Brendan Dillon. And then obviously, Sandberg probably becomes a 7th defenseman. But to me, that makes your defense now one of the better defenses in the Western Conference. I don't know if the Jets were in on Ekholm at all or in on Chychrun at all. But I mean, look at what Edmonton had to give up. They had to give up Reed Schaefer, who's a really good prospect with the Seattle Thunderbirds. They had to give up a first-round pick. But the Oilers identified the open Western Conference and the fact that Conor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, these guys are having, career years. Yeah. Seems like every year they're having a career year. But Kenny Holland identified the need to bring in a left side shutdown defenseman. And he had to also give up Tyson Barrie, obviously, who's more known for being an offensive-minded defenseman, right? So that is the type of move that I would have been excited as a fan if Chevy went out and got an Ekholm, or if he got, a Colton Parayko. And we obviously know Colton Parayko has a high price tag, but the point is to what Dave was saying, I don't think that there's a lot of confidence. Niederreiter and Nemestikov are good veteran NHL players. They are an upgrade over what the Jets currently have, but I don't think it moves the needle enough that you're going to say, if the Jets go up against the Dallas or Colorado in the first round, now they're locked and loaded and they're ready to go.
Let me read you this quote. You don't know where the future is going to go on a lot of different fronts, the cap, contracts, injuries. But one thing about this game is when you have an opportunity, you should try and take it. As a player, you hear stories of players getting so close and never achieving their goal. The would've, could've, should've of things at the end of their careers. If they had the benefit of hindsight, maybe there would be different things. Those are the kind of things that you never want to, as a player, never want to leave on the table. You know who said those words? Kevin Cheveldayoff. That's his quote from January. He's talking about the need to go all in when the opportunity is there. And then what does he do? He doesn't go all in. He doesn't do what his own mouth
Well,
said
hold
to
on,
do.
Drew. But then what does that mean? Again,
Can't believe him.
no. Maybe what it means is he doesn't have the faith in this group to get it done.
When he said
or boys, sorry, Dave, or Drew, I was just going to say, or he struck out on the players he was trying to acquire, right? Like that's a thing that you have to consider here. I don't necessarily know. Like Chevy spoke to John Liu during the intermission. He spoke to the assembled media yesterday, right? Dave M was there down at Canada Life Center, right? We don't know. Like he's not going to tell you that he could, I guess, but he's not going to tell you if he tried to acquire a defenseman. That's just Chevy won't tell you that he was trying to do that. So all I'm saying is I think there was it appears that there was an effort to acquire more players, including a defenseman. That's why I would say, based on reporting by others, right?
I don't know that there was, Ezzy. I mean, I appreciate your opinion, and
well, no, it's not just my opinion though. Darren Dreger and Andy Strickland said that the Jets were, and obviously we know where that is coming from. Let's not kid ourselves here.
So again, you don't get credit for trying.
All I'm saying is I think all I'm saying, Drew, is I agree with both of you guys. I think the Jets should have acquired more impact players. All I'm saying is that we can't, based on the information we have, we can't just say Chevy didn't intend to acquire any other players. That's all I'm saying. There's no proof for that. It's just speculation.
Well, yes, okay, fine. Yes, it is speculation. Nobody is quite sure, but in my books, you don't get a good grade for just trying. You have to.
And I agree with that, Drew.
You get paid
I'm 100% on board with that.
You have a fan base. I mean, again, you have a ticket buying public that that needs a reason to continue to buy tickets for your product, and you've not given them one. And so what's going to happen is your numbers in attendance, unless they turn this thing around, are going to go down.
There were 2,100 empty seats on the against LA, by the way.
Yeah, it's not like it's just a small number. The number is because people are saying, why would I go out and support a losing product when you had to do something to get me into the building? Why would I? And you didn't. And you're not playing well, and the entertainment dollar isn't there, and the entertainment I'm getting out of a night out at your establishment, and this is true for any business. A restaurant that isn't any good is not going to have any people there. A hockey team,
unless people like eating bad food, I guess.
A hockey team, a football team, a baseball team that is not any good and isn't giving you a reason to support them is not going to have as many people there. This Jets team is in a free fall. It's not a short-term thing. I mean, go back since January the 15th, I believe is what I had. January the 15th. So we're almost at 2 months. The Jets are the 28th best team in the NHL.
And it's their start. Dave mentioned the first 30 games where they won. They were 29-1.
Right.
That's the only reason they're still in a playoff spot.
Of course.
Right. Like it was the first third of the season that has allowed them to remain in a playoff spot. If they had 6 or 7 less points, well, they would be where the Flames are right now.
So you've done nothing to indicate that this is going to change. It's not a small sample size anymore. It's almost half of the games you've played. You were exceptional for half the games you played. You've been pretty terrible for almost half of the other games you've played. So now you're just going to hope that the switch flips again like it did? Then you become exceptional again? I just don't see that as hope is not a strategy.
Yeah.
Hope is not a business approach. Hope is not going to get people in. Well, I've done nothing to improve my food, but I hope people are going to come and support my business.
Well, again, it's up to the. Sorry, I was just going to say, Dave. Now it's up to the players. Like it's a cliche. It's obvious, but it's up to the players, and it's up to the star players. So we're talking about Scheifele and Connor and Ehlers, Wheeler, Dubois once he comes back, right, Dave? Like Nino Niederreiter and Vladislav Nemestikov are going to help, but the Jets have 20 games to get this thing going, and it's their core that's going to be. It'll be whether or not the Jets get into the playoffs and do anything, it'll be on the core. It's not on anybody else. It's the core of this team.
That's right. And don't forget Connor Hellebuyck. You're going to need him to be
and I could have thrown Hellebuyck in there, but I mean Hellebuyck has been terrific maybe not so much the last couple of games, but the reason why I didn't throw in Hellebuck in there, Dave, is because I don't think anybody's questioning his performance.
No, I agree. But I just think I think it's interesting. Like you look at the numbers to start the season and now, and it's just it's funny because the Jets are still generating fairly similarly. They're just the luck, the shooting percentage has gone down. And I think that's part of, it happens now. Again, I'm going to go reiterate the point I made earlier, which is it's one thing if that was 5 games, even 10 games, right. But you're at 32 games now where you've gone from an exceptional team, an elite team, if you will, boys. And look, 29. I know.
It's because they were.
I know. I understand that. But the reality was that, they were getting exceptional Vezina caliber goaltending from Connor Hellebuck, which we've always said that's one of the things the Jets need, game in and game out is Connor Hellebuck to be who he is. I mean, you can think about how many games so far the Jets wouldn't have won without, I think 4 or 5 games at least that I can think of this season where he won them the game, obviously most recently in New York. But the fact is that I do think it's, again, I don't want to reiterate the point too many times, but I just think that you are what you are. And 32 games is a big enough sample size to say suddenly you've got, Ezzy, how many times did we talk about this throughout the course of the early part of the season, the first 30 games, where I said, well, you know what, the good thing for the Jets is even if you didn't play a great game, you banked 2 more points. I mean, honestly, we probably said that half a dozen times in games where they maybe didn't even deserve to win, but they got the win through Connor Hellebuck or one of their other guys stepping up. And we said that. We said, okay, well, that's good for your standings bank. I mean, you can go back and we would have the clips, on so many of these post-game shows or the post-game show. Drew screwed me up with the post-game intro. But I think that it's interesting because, again, now you're in a situation where you're winning 1 out of every second game, and you're not even actually, but you know what I mean? So the points has nosedived, and unfortunately for them, the teams that are around them have either continued to elevate like Minnesota and Colorado, or the Calgarys, which have, been middling as well. And that's probably the only thing that's saving the Jets right now, because it looks like Vegas, they're doing well. Seattle, they're doing well. I know they lost last night, but Edmonton, like the teams in the Pacific are doing well. So the only luck for the Jets is that they banked enough points that they're ahead of Calgary, and Nashville. Mm-hmm. But again, continuing to perform the way they did. I mean, how many times did we watch? We obviously did the post-game show, so we don't need to talk about it too much, but how many times did we talk about that first period and just the laziness? And Rick Bowness, it was a short media availability because the only media there were Jets-related media. But he talked about this. I think he said the comment was something like along the lines of it was the most undisciplined team he's ever seen or something like that. It was terrible. In a game
and the Jets aren't a team that takes a lot of penalties traditionally.
Yeah, well, and I think it's just.
I'm just saying over the last few years. We all remember 4 or 5 years ago that was an issue, but it's certain you wouldn't look at. I would have to pull up the team penalties. I don't know exactly where the Jets rank. I don't really care.
Well, their PK.
That's why it's surprising that Bowness said that was the most undisciplined game that he's ever seen, considering that he's coached 2,600 plus NHL games, right?
Well, and just I'm finishing the thought. It's look, I get that you have the second best.
I didn't want you to finish your thought there, Dave.
That's okay. You can finish.
Mission accomplished.
But I think no, I'm still on the
Jets have taken the 15th. The Jets are middle of the pack, 15th in terms of number of minor penalties taken this year.
Okay, but the point is that they've got the second best penalty killing unit in the NHL, and that's great. But again, how many chances are you going to give the Edmonton Oilers, who have the best power play in the NHL? And you start from a deficit. And it's just, again, guys can't afford to do that. Kyle Connor needs to be putting pucks into the net, not putting himself into the penalty box. And it started there, and it set the tone for a first period that was just undisciplined by Winnipeg. And you saw what ended up happening. So look, the Jets are, I think you used the word free fall, Drew, but I think right now they need to arrest their development arrest their fall, because right now it's just not going to be good enough for them to, back end into this playoffs because they had a good first half.
Well, let me ask you guys this. Let's say that this free fall continues. And for argument's sake, we'll even say they squeak into the playoffs, they lose in the first round and they're done. Why?
What happens in the 2024-25 season, Drew?
Well, I don't know what happens there yet, but there's no.
I was just joking because you were going so far into the future here.
Well, but it's not that far in the future, Ezzy. But I understand what you're. I don't know that would be a joke per se. That would be maybe just a comment. It was lacking in the funny category. But
that wasn't funny.
Yeah, but there's no reason to run back this group again. You'd be 1 year closer to unrestricted free agency for most of the core players. why would you run it back again?
I mean, if it blows up, Drew, they're gonna have to make major decisions this summer. I mean, and the reality is your best opportunity is to get to recoup assets would be ahead of the draft in the summer. So that to me is a non-factor.
Summer 2023, Dave, could be what a lot of people thought summer 2022 was going to be.
Right,
where
they gave him another
Dubois
chance.
is moved, or Wheeler is moved, or Scheifele is moved. Maybe all three guys are moved. Like it's time to move on from the current core, I think.
If this continues, there's no question about it. But I also don't know why Kevin Cheveldayoff should be the one to rebuild this roster again. I mean, with all due respect,
well, he's got 2 years left on his contract. That's why,
that's
right?
Great. But that doesn't mean that's great. That doesn't mean that he automatically needs to play finish out that contract in the current role. There's just no reason to he's had 12 years to build this team. Now, whether or not he's solely responsible for building the team, or if the owner is heavily involved, or the scouts are heavily involved, which the scouts should be because that's why they're getting paid. But
it's Chevy's team, Drew. The pro scouts are consulted, but Chevy is the general manager. He's the one who has built this team.
It's built by Kevin. He's the one who stands in front. He's the one who gets paid the most to stand in front of the media and deflect their questions, which again is fine. That's and there
was a lot of deflecting yesterday. That was some of the most deflecting I've ever seen.
And if it's the organizational philosophy that all he needs to do is deflect and not actually answer questions that his paying fan base would be interested in hearing, that's their choice. That's their business. They get to run it however they want to run it, but then people will respond accordingly if they don't like the answers they're getting. I went to the restaurant, my food sucked. I went and spoke to the manager. The manager didn't really do anything to offer me anything. He just sort of placated me, and I went on my way, and I didn't get in, and I didn't go back to the restaurant again. The analogy works all over the place, no matter if you're talking, professional sports, or if you're talking a small restaurant, a small diner. It works the same way. Whether or not True North decides to change their approach, time will tell on that front. Scott Billick of Post Media, the Winnipeg Sun. He's up next this morning. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Hopefully I'll play the right commercials after I played the wrong intro. It's Saturday morning. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hi, Ez. A strange question for you. But why are you lying on the ground being crushed by a piano?
Well, Drew, I definitely tried to carry this baby grand piano down the stairs by myself, and somehow I failed miserably.
Right. Yeah, sorry, that was a silly question on my part. My apologies. Would you like me to call Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage to help you move the piano? They are the most experienced piano moving company in Winnipeg, after all.
Yes, please call Rolly's and hurry. This piano is very, very heavy.
Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage offers stress-free residential moving services while taking great care of your personal belongings, including your piano. At Rolly's, no job is too big or too small. For more information, visit rollys.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal. Starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Bottom of hour number 1. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show on this Saturday morning. I'm your host, Drew Mindell. Dave Minuk in the top right. We're starting a crowdfunding page to get Dave a plant or something behind him so that looks less like a hostage scenario, as he's got a plant behind him. So that crowdfunding was successful. We add Scott Billick to the show. Scotty, do you have a plant behind you in any room? No plants?
I don't bother with the greenery, vegetation. I don't need any of that. So
you don't need any of that photosynthesis, none of that.
No. You don't make friends with salad.
I got like a big light beam coming in on me this morning, though.
I do.
So
yeah, that's good.
But and I got a rolled up piece of carpet behind me, a light with a bunch of press passes over the years.
What's with the carpet? Is there a body in there? Are you doing some renovations? What's going on?
No, it literally that's been there probably for about 4 years, and I haven't moved it. So
okay,
it's just part of the furniture now. So,
that's good. That's good. Have you tripped over it before?
No, it's out of the way.
Okay.
If I trip over that, there's probably something an intoxicant, I suppose, involved. If I was to hit that, so yeah. Anyway. Dave does need a plant, though. I mean, he looks like he's.
He looks
where are you, Dave?
Like he looks like he's at the American border, and they're just holding him.
So he's in a holding cell.
I am. I've been.
It was nice that they gave him Wi-Fi and a computer, though.
Yeah, they said we understand you have the #1 show in Winnipeg to do, so we'll let you have some time there.
Dave, what's it like to be at Guantanamo Bay right now?
Well, it was okay. They unfortunately I thought I was getting a shower. It turned out to be waterboarding, but other than that, it's been a rather pleasant experience.
This is off the rails. What have I joined here? Are we talking hockey?
Scotty, the problem is yesterday's post-game show went so far out. We were talking about bridges in Winnipeg and ice cream, so things went.
Chat roulette, Scotty. That's what this is. Chat roulette.
I mean, the game was pretty bad, so I mean, I don't know if you wanted to talk. Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to talk about bridges ice cream, I guess go for it.
So talking about things being pretty bad, I think for a lot of people, the Jets trade deadline would be considered pretty bad. I mean,
nice segue.
It's sort of funny. Thank you, Ezzy. It's sort of funny because people say, okay, the Niederreiter move made sense. People like that because logically on paper that makes perfect sense. It's a reasonable move for a reasonable price. The Mestikov, sure, he's an NHL player. It's not really going to impact people one way or the other. It's one of those. Okay, fine, I can live with that. I think as we've been talking about for a lot of the last 12 hours or so, or even longer than that, it's the half measures of it all. It doesn't seem that you've actually accomplished anything in terms of bettering the team. It's just you've more sort of rearranged the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah, I mean, this is yesterday was it was a, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Do you want to call it a dark day for the Winnipeg Jets? One of the lowest days since they returned from Atlanta in 2011. Like, I mean, I don't know where you want to start with yesterday, because I think there's a lot of
peculiarities of it all. I mean, just
it's an odd situation because you have a team that next year could look much, much different. You have a goalie playing at a Vezina rate right now. I mean, you can look at last night's game and say, you can pin it on Hellebuck. Again, Dylan DeMello passing to whoever it was
Nugent Hopkins.
That was a perfect give and go with the wrong player. So like you got to wonder, like, what are you wasting here? And it's a lot, right? Like, so you're wasting the prime of one of the best goalies in the NHL, one of the best goalies of his generation. I mean, you look at his stats, you look at his numbers, that they all suggest that. Mm-hmm. You have one of the better goal scorers over the last 6-7 years in Kyle Connor. I just, and then so, this team hits a rough patch, and I understand, like, I get it. I get that, the argument that, some people think that, this team didn't show that they deserved an investment. I would argue that this team, for the first 50 games this year, almost 40 games, let's say 45 games, whatever, showed marked improvement from the year before. Was dealing with injuries very well. Was dealing with adversity in game very well. This team looked very connected, very together. Throughout the first 50 games of the year, almost 45, whatever. The number doesn't always matter as much here, right. But it's just like, there's two sides, right? Like, I can understand why the organization was a little bit hesitant to maybe spend its draft capital, its prospects, that sort of thing. But then Kevin Cheveldaeff comes out yesterday and said, well, there was no barriers to any trades. Like, he was willing, he said essentially to sell. Nobody was untouchable. Draft picks weren't a problem. There were, I thought it was really odd that he said there was no opportunity to move his first round pick this year. I mean, if you look at first round picks this year, they're the most coveted things in the NHL. So, it is, like you said, half measured, and that's what it felt like, a letdown yesterday. And I get there's a segment of the fan base that thinks, why reward this team? But I think you reward this team for what it did. Like, the conversation that you got to, that you're talking about going all in with this team, is because this team went out and on the ice and proved that they were at one point a contending team.
I mean, Scotty, I read the quote earlier, from January, in Buffalo when Chevy met with the media.
I was sitting right in front of him there. Yeah.
It's his words. It's not words we're putting in his mouth. They were his words.
I totally get it, right? And I remember him saying, if this team deserved it, they would go all in. And so then when he comes out yesterday and said that, the at that point 6 losses and 7 didn't change anything. If we're going to take that at face value, and I don't believe him, obviously, because he also said that if the team was on an 8-game winning streak, he would have done it the same way. I don't believe that either. I mean, there's no way. The team's on an 8-game winning streak. First of all, they're in first place most likely. And secondly, they might have a good cushion on first place in the Central Division. What are you going to do? Not go all in if you're the first place team that's streaking, into down the stretch. So like, it just felt like a lot of the same yesterday, right? It's like, we want to make sure we don't mortgage our future. We want to, it's just like this team they've kicked the can down the road over and over and over again. And we're 12 years into this. This team's gone to the playoffs 4 times. It's been to the Western Conference Final for 5 games. It hasn't been past the first round, more than once since that season. And they got past the first round and then got swept out of the playoffs. I mean, last year they didn't have a playoff game. This team hasn't had fans in the building that weren't, basically selected as healthcare workers for free to go to the games since 2019. There's just 2,000 fans fewer in the stands every night this year on average than there ever been. This team doesn't sell out games anymore, or rarely. I mean, I shouldn't say they don't. They've done it 3 times this year. And I think, I think it's tough for the fans, because I think fans, wanted to see, I think a lot of fans wanted to see something. But then if you're not going to do something, then what are we doing here? Like, should they have traded Pierre-Luc Dubois yesterday? Should they have looked at Mark Scheifele, Connor Hellebuyck, and said, okay, well, then maybe we're going to start moving you guys out? Because, at this point, where's this team going with this core? What's going to happen next season? I mean, you're going to get now into a playoffs. You're going to probably limp in. Calgary might still pass you. Yeah, exactly. Calgary might still pass you.
Nashville might still pass you. Well, Nashville's got 3 games in hand, and they're only 6 points back. And they're selling.
Right, exactly. And so, unless this team can figure it out and turn it around, and, there's every chance they can do it, but they're running out of games to do so. Making up 7 points to get to the Dallas Stars is probably almost impossible at this point. You could probably still finish in second place. I don't think that's out of the question. You have a big game against Minnesota this week coming up. But if you don't win that, you're probably out of the running for the Central Division, because I think Colorado, is probably going to win the division, I think, in the end, the way that they're going. And so now you're fighting for a wild card spot. You're going to play one of those teams in the first round, Colorado, potentially Dallas, maybe,
Edmonton?
Vegas, or Edmonton. So now you're wondering, like, are you even going to get out of the first round? And then, so now you've taken this approach where, and some people will say it wasn't as wide open as it was in the West, but I think the Jets have shown at times this year they can compete with every team in the Western Conference. And then you don't really do anything to kind of set yourself apart or make yourself better. Like, what was missing last night? I think, this team talked a lot, and we in the media and all the insiders have talked to this team looking to add a defenseman, perhaps a guy with some grit or some Stanley Cup experience, something like that. I mean, the Jets got blown out last night. They had terrible defensive play. Poor puck management. All the same problems. They traded for Vladdy Nemestikov. But I don't think anybody watched that game last night and said Nemestikov is going to come in and fix everything. And so then you wonder, but that's the thing, right? Then you wonder, okay, well, maybe this team is just, a lost cause, right? This team has been, they've ignored some of the problems with this team for a long time. They've ignored some of the, let's say, question marks in the core. And so, they haven't fixed that for years. They keep trying to make this one work, right? Like, they want to make this core work, but then again, they don't also really, take the measure or take the steps to make it work, because it's always kind of this half-assed approach at trade deadline where, okay, well, we'll get this guy, but we didn't take the big swing to get, that guy, like there's this year, we hear the Jets were linked with Jacob Chikrin and Timo Meier. At one point, we know that the Jets were in on Timo Meier, but they didn't take the swing there. Could they have gotten him? Probably, if all they needed was a rental. But again, I think about the players in that dressing room. I think about the Kyle Connors who came out and said, we need this team. We want this team to go all in. You think about the Josh Morrissey's who said 100% when asked about if he wants the team to go all in. You think about those two guys. Their futures are sort of, probably some of the longest commitments to this team right now. Does Josh Morrissey, in the prime of his career, having a Norris season, want to be staring down a rebuild? Can this team retool on the fly? Are they going to get, player for player? Are they going to get PLD for PLD when they trade him? Are they going to get Mark Scheifele for Mark Scheifele when they trade him? Like, it's pretty. Are they going to get a world-class goaltender for a world-class goaltender when they trade him? Like, I don't think so. And so, where does that leave this team after this season? Why would Connor Hellebuyck ever want to re-sign here? That's the other question I have. Here's a guy who has given everything to this team, bailed them out too many times to count at this point. And if I was Conor Hellebuyck, I'd be mad. I'd be pissed off right now. I'd be like, what is happening here? Like, I've given everything. I'm one of the best goalies in the world. You've got to be a bit selfish here. I'm one of the best goalies in the world. He's doing, he's stolen games for this team. Yeah. The defense has never really gotten much better in front of him. So yeah, I don't know. Yesterday was a very tough day for this team, and I think it exposed Kevin Cheveldayo's lack of ambition for this team, his lack of decisiveness for this team, and it brings into question if he's the right guy to do the job. And I think a lot of people are there's a growing segment that would rather just see a fresh set of eyes. I know Paul Maurice said this team needed a new voice. It might need a new voice and a fresh set of eyes in the GM seat, because we're 12 years into this. This Jets team is going to limp into the playoffs at best. They might miss it. If they miss it, I think Cheveldayoff's gone regardless, because, at the end of the day, this is a business, and the Jets need to be playing in the playoffs. They need that gate. They need that revenue. And, if they miss it, what are they doing? What are they waiting for? Rutger McGroarty? Are they waiting for Chaz Lucius? This team could take another 5 years to kind of figure it out. And what are we on another 5-year plan around here? I don't know. Like I understand, like I totally get that Kevin Cheveldayoff has a very difficult time in this market trying to do his job, but that's your job. Like this is what you signed up for. You know that this market's going to be tough, and you have to find ways to be creative. And so when there's guys on the trade market that don't have any clauses in their contract, those are the guys
in the league has a clause.
Exactly, and those are the guys that you have to get here. Right? You have to outbid those other guys. Then you might have to pay a little bit more, whatever you got to do. But we know we have a very conservative general manager here. That's not always willing to do that. And you look at the trades that he's made throughout the years, at trade deadlines, it's always been, in like look at the Nino Niederreiter trade. We think it's a great trade because it was only cost the Jets a 2024 second rounder. So they didn't even send a pick from this year's draft, which is, being called one of the better drafts in quite some time, but that's the thing, right? It's such a risk adverse approach to general managing that, like, I mean, the trades and all that, all the moves, they look good at the time. But at the end, when you look back at them, it's like, okay, but they never took any risks, right? You look at the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, you look at the Boston Bruins, the New Jersey Devils, the New York Rangers. They're all taking risks, right? It may not pan out. Those are 4 teams. One of those teams may not even one of those teams may not even win the Stanley Cup. But I think in Toronto right now, if you're the fan base, you're happy. You're happy that your team has gone out and gone for it, right? And here, are you happy? I mean, there's people in the chat right now. Are you fans? Are you happy that this team has sat here and kind of sat on its hands through another trade deadline?
Even the happiest-go-lucky players, Scott, or happiest-go-lucky fan is just questioning, questioning the approach because it doesn't. There's no logic to it. I mean, if you just want to break it down by a logical perspective, you can't say that this makes sense, at all, and that's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make sense of this. I don't think you can look at this and build a logical argument that doesn't, miss some of the context of what's about to happen in this city in terms of, your contracts and all that. And if you watched Kevin Cheveldayoff's press conference yesterday as a fan, I'd be interested to know what you think, because I don't think that this team, I don't know if it was fair to the fan base yesterday. It almost came across as a little bit arrogant at times, condescending. Yeah, exactly. I think this team wants. I think this team has gotten to a point where, it's too comfortable for a lot of these people. I mean, Paul Maurice essentially had to fire himself. Is this team willing to even, contemplate firing Kevin Cheveldayoff? I mean, I understand he got an extension. It's a 4-year extension. I get that. So it came after the 2021-22 season, I believe, right? The 2020-21 season that they gave it to him, but they didn't announce it until after the worst year. And the only reason it got out is because Ken Weeb reported it, and then they were upset that even got out, because at the time it was during the Kyle Beach thing, and of course that was really bad optics, and also bad optics that this team was coming right off the worst season since they returned here. But I just this team has often rewarded mediocrity with more mediocrity, and so you're at a crossroads here, and I think if even the most rose-tinted colored glasses fan can look at this team. Yeah, you might be happy just to have an NHL team here. You might have gone through losing the team back in '96 and all that, and you're just happy to be able to go and watch hockey. But do you want to just keep going to watch hockey that kind of just middles around in the in the murky middle all the time and doesn't really commit to contending, or you're just hoping to catch lightning in the bottle? I don't know. I don't know.
Scotty, just one more. Sorry, just one more question on the trade deadline, and then we can get back to the Jets Oilers games. Pardon me, game tomorrow. Pardon me, tonight, if I can get it right. Is there one player out there that you really thought would catapult this team? Like, I think you could argue the Jets are only 1 or 2 players away. Matthias Ekholm to me fits that bill.
Yeah, I mean,
as a player that would really help the Jets defensively.
Yeah. I mean, he's a solid defenseman, right? I mean, I thought maybe a Jacob Chikrin would have helped too in the way that he can. But I understand Jacob Chikrin's has some injury concerns and that sort of thing. Did you look at Colton Parayko? Right shot man who won a Stanley Cup. I understand that's a tough contract to absorb. Given the term on it, but this is also a team that likes term when they get players. It's a good question, right? I mean, could one player save this team? No, I don't think there was one player, but that's the thing. I mean, you look at what the Toronto Maple Leafs done. I think they brought in 6 or 7 new players. So they've really turned over the team. Is it going to work out for them? I don't know, but sometimes when you have a lot of holes on your team or you're just looking to upgrade, you upgrade as much as you can.
Look at the Bruins. The Bruins, a team that, can't lose. And,
exactly.
They don't stand pat. What do they go out? They go out and they get Orlov. They go out and get Hathaway. They go out and get Bertuzzi.
Yep. And I get it. I mean, and then there's other teams too. Like, let's not make a mistake here. Think here. Kevin Cheveldayoff came up yesterday and said, well, when you look at cap friendly, this team has $3.4 million remaining in cap space that they never used. And his thing was, well, performance bonuses, calling people up and down and all that sort of thing. Is Cole Perfetti getting performance bonus? Like, we don't know performance bonuses, what they are, what they have to hit. It's part of their contract. We don't see those parts of the contract. Nobody reports it because nobody knows.
Yeah.
But is Cole Perfetti hitting his performance bonuses when he's not going to play the rest of the season? Is Morgan Barron hitting his? Is Dylan Samberg hitting his right now? So yeah, you have to have money, but here's the problem that I have with that whole thing before you say any of that stuff. Other teams get creative and find ways to navigate that, right? Everybody thought it was kind of funny that the Edmonton Oilers got the Nashville Predators to keep 4% of Matthias Ekholm's contract. Well, then, yesterday it looks genius because how much cap space does the Edmonton Oilers have right now? Not a single penny, right?
And
but that's because
it allowed them to get Bukestad.
Exactly, right? So, I think when you look back and you take a step back and you look at what the other players, the other GMs are doing, and it's not just the Julian Brisebois, right? It's the Ken Hollands in Edmonton that's finding a way to make it work. If you go back to summer, and I know, in hindsight, it hasn't worked out in Calgary, but, Calgary faced a tough summer and got, at the time, a lot of people thought was they retooled on the fly and made it work. And then you go and look at, I've criticized Pierre Dorian in Ottawa. So look at what that team's doing. I mean, you see a team in Ottawa, which isn't a traditional, conventional market. Not everybody wants to play in Ottawa. We know that. The owner, before he passed, wasn't, the most popular guy out there. But, you're looking at these other teams in Canada outside of Toronto and Vancouver, and even Vancouver is a tire fire right now. But outside of Toronto, where a lot of people, want to play, it's obvious. But, some of these other markets that aren't the most favorable places, Ottawa's finding a way to get players in. They're taking advantage of no trade clauses or no clauses in contracts and all that. And they're building a team that's going to compete. The Jets had done that early on, but then it's just been, okay, we're going to ride this core until it goes. And the core is obviously, it's just not working, but they've never really moved anybody out of that core that they haven't really been forced to move out of that core. They're trying to go, and this year another one. We're going to try and do it again, the one last chance. But then your one last chance with this core, you step into the trade deadline, and you don't do anything really to move that core along, shake it up maybe a little bit, whatever you want to say. So again, yesterday was like I said, it was a tough day. It was a half-assed day again, I think, in my opinion, and I think the angst that you're seeing, whether it's in your chat, whether it's on social media, I imagine, tonight, if the Jets go down 5-0, there's going to be a chorus of boos at Canada Life Center again. I think fans are showing their displeasure and the fact that there are 2,000 fans short every game. People want this team to do like this, but this is also a business at the end of the day. And this team bled a lot of money during the pandemic because of restrictions and all that sort of thing. And coming out of it, they haven't gotten back to the full house because they had some pretty bad years during the pandemic. And so, yeah, it was tough to wrap my head around what happened yesterday. I think for a lot of people, they don't know. And then, after Kevin Cheveldayoff spoke, you're sitting there like,
What did I
You
just
know,
hear?
what's really going on here? Like, I mean, what is the vision? What's the ambition? When we asked Kevin Cheveldaev what the vision was after the season last year, and we hummed and hawed about, you know, Stanley Cup and blah blah blah, playoffs and all that. But you know, they haven't made a commitment to winning a Stanley Cup right now. And you know, so we're looking at a team that, unless it catches lightning in the bottle, probably isn't getting past the first or second round, and that's just the way it is right now.
Scott Billick, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, Saturday morning. We're live on YouTube. We're live on all of our social media platforms.
You know, Scotty, we could talk all day long about trade deadline and whatnot, but you know, I want to talk about some of the personnel decisions right now with this team, because if you ask me, one of the players who's, you know, excelled this season is Dylan Samberg, and sure, his game still has some warts, but, and I'm not asking you to be the head coach, but to me, why are you taking Dylan Samberg out of this lineup and replacing him with Logan Stanley, especially
After
I know
he
that
asked
Rick
for a trade?
well, especially after he asked for a trade, you know, or
But
became,
Chevy couldn't confirm or deny that, Dave.
he couldn't confirm or deny it. That's true. But you know, and look, like Rick Bowness often says that kind of, and look, it's not as if Logan Stanley would have said to Rick Bowness, "I want to trade." You know, that's
of course not.
the agent and Kevin Cheveldaev
yeah.
talk about. So, you know, and then leak out to other media, you know, markets, and it gets out. But the point I'm making is, you know, you've got a guy in Samberg who seems to be excelling. If you look at the analytics, his analytics have been very strong this season. So why is it that, you know, like, it's funny how Rick Bowness will say, well, you know, we don't want to keep guys, you know, sitting too long. Well, Kyle Capobianco's played what, 4 games for the Jets, 5 games. So I understand that. But the reality is the NHL isn't a developmental league. And I can understand the idea of platooning, but what are your thoughts? Like, why is it that it's Dylan Samberg coming out of the lineup when guys like Neil Pionk are the ones who are really struggling right now for the Jets? And I understand left side, right side, but, you know, as Nate Schmidt has told me numerous times, when he got to Washington, you know, the left side was full. So what did he do? He went to the right side and learned how to the right side and learned how to play on the right. I'm just saying it's a question mark in terms of how Rick Bowness is choosing to kind of cherry pick who he quote rewards and who he doesn't, and why he says it's, you know, it's a across the board approach, but really you see Neil Pionk, who's not having a very good season.
Yeah.
And he's not, there's no pullback with him. And a guy like Samberg, who's having a very good season, there gets pullback.
Well, I mean, I think you're probably not going to be sitting your $5.8 million defenseman very often either, right? I mean, that's just not really how it works in the NHL. I mean, you know, guys struggle all the time wherever you are, and you're not really sitting big money tickets guys. So like I understand, you know, the idea of that, but you know, I think part of it too, going back to trade deadline, is they needed to address the defense. They needed to inject something on that blue line that was going to, you know, kind of stir up the pot a little bit, you know, from the top to the bottom. You know, outside of Josh Morrissey, I don't think anybody in that top 6 has really performed at the level that they want to, consistently throughout the season. But to your point, I mean, you know, why does Logan Stanley get to go in after he asked for a trade? I mean, that's a bit of a, you know, a head scratcher. It's like, you know, are you rewarding him now? Are you caving into his agent? Like, you know, the agent obviously wants him to play more. That's, you know, he wants his client to have an opportunity. And if it's not going to be here, he wants it there. But I mean, Logan Stanley's been given a lot of opportunity. That's, you know, he has, and you know, it's not his fault that he's been injured twice this year for one lengthy period of time, for sure. You know, that's not really on him, but also Logan Stanley hasn't taken, you know, he hasn't really grabbed the position. You know, they wanted this 6'7" defenseman to be, you know, I was high on Logan Stanley. Everybody knows that. They make fun of me about it. You know, that's fine. I thought, you know, you give a guy like that a shot because you like his size and you like what he might be able to turn into.
Hey, Scotty, he sniped a couple goals in the playoffs against the Habs a couple years ago.
And he looked good at that time, right? I mean, it looked like this guy was, you know, starting to come into his own. He was seizing kind of the moment in the playoffs, which is, you know, a step in you know, in your development that you would like to see. But again, he's just never really been that physical guy. And then last night, you know, he gets to play physical and he boards a guy into the boards, right? Like it's the wrong type of physicality. The night before, and against I think it was Los Angeles, he cross-checks a guy in the face, and so it's like, you know,
and he almost got a major penalty for
and he should have gotten a major penalty for him. It was inexplicable why they kept it at a 2-minute. But you know, it's just like, you know, here's a guy who's been asked to be more physical, then they put him in the lineup, and outside of that big hit that he threw in Nashville on his return from his second injury, we haven't seen it. And so, this is a team that had been reported to want to get grittier. I'd heard that they were looking for a gritty defenseman. It's not a coincidence that you heard the name Luke Shen out there, Nick Seeler, and his team was looking at those, those types of players because, are they the most skilled defensemen? Well, maybe not. But are they big and physical and rugged guys that are going to go out there and not necessarily be Dustin Byfuglien, of course, because, Dustin Byfuglien was a bit of a unicorn, but have that sort of physical presence that really, can bring the fan base into the game and that sort of thing. And then Dylan Sandberg's just played better over the course of the year, in my opinion. But they've tried to take him out because they've tried to play with this kind of rotation, and they want to get Stanley in. They don't want him to sit, and at times they wanted to get Kyle Capelbanco in, and then he'll play one game in like 20, and it's just like, then they want to get him in, and it's like
it's so random,
and
it never really makes any sense.
No, and that's the other thing. It's like, and like I understand the idea of like taking a guy out when he's playing well, because you don't want, when you take a guy out that's playing well, the idea is that he's not going to be as upset about it. But I would disagree. I think if you're a guy like Dylan Sandberg who's fighting for a job and you're playing well and you're still not getting to stay in the lineup, I mean, that's more of a piss off than anything else, right? Like, I mean, you're upset because you're not staying in the lineup when you're playing well. And I think Dylan Sandberg has deserved to blossom in that job and give him a chance to just run with 30, 40 games the whole season. Let him go. This is your future guy. And if you've already been shopping Logan Stanley around back in the summer because we heard his name out there before, why are you not rewarding the guy who is working hard, trying to make the lineup every night and stick in the lineup and is playing better than Stanley or Capelbanco? Why aren't you rewarding that guy? This goes back to last season when this team was way out of the playoff, Ryan, and they just kept running out the same old veteran defensemen instead of bringing Villia up and Dylan up and playing those guys. And it's a bizarre move. And, it's funny. You go back to last week now, or earlier this week, and Rick Bowness talked, a little bit about his frustrations of not being able to perhaps potentially play the guys he wants or the call-ups he wants. Read between the lines a little bit. Yeah. Who does he want in the lineup? Because, I mean, you remember, like, people look at Dominic Toninato, right? He was a gritty fourth line guy who would pop in a few goals every now and then, and why is he not up here anymore? Like, why isn't
Jansen Harkins?
Why isn't Jansen Harkins been given another shot?
Yeah.
When Carson Coleman,
I've been beating that drum, Scott. Ask Dave.
Yeah. I mean, I understand. I think a lot of people are now, because you're looking at Sacramento Line and you're looking at Carson Coleman. What are they really offering to this team at this point? Are they any different? Are they any? I
think Sam Gagner goes in tonight personally.
Yeah, he might. But now you're at a point, right, where you only have 3 call-ups that you're allowed to use up until the end of the season. And so now you have to kind of figure it out. And this team hasn't wanted to lose players on waivers because they've lost players from the beginning of the year when they lost Kovacevic to waivers.
Still doesn't make any sense that this many months later.
Exactly to the Mikey Eyssimont. Imagine that you essentially traded for Mikey Eyssimont yesterday. Like isn't that?
Now, Scott, it's not fantasy hockey. Stop that.
Yeah, I know, but that's such a fantasy hockey trade, right? Like, I mean, it's just like it's. You let the guy go for free. You let the guy go for free, and you end up trading essentially for him because that's what San Jose got for, or Domestikov is what they got for Eyssimont, who Tampa Bay wanted. Will Tampa Bay play Mikey Eyssimont? I'm not entirely sure if he's there, but he's an option for them.
Doesn't it strike fear in your heart a little bit that Tampa Bay wants Mikey Eyssimont?
Right? you know? And
if
this
the
is
Lightning want a guy.
Frustration.
Yeah.
This is where I think, I mean,
he's a good fourth line player. I agree with Scott. I don't think you could argue that the bottom 6 hasn't been the same since Mikey Eyssimont and Jansen Harkins were there, right?
Right. Like
hey, last time Adam Lowry scored a goal, Scotty, 35 games ago, Jansen Harkins was the one who was setting him up.
Yeah, I mean, there's been problems for Adam Lowry. I get it, and all that, but I mean, Mike Yesmont brought energy to this team, right? You saw it from the day that he came into the lineup. That guy was, the Duracell bunny, right? Like, or Energizer bunny. Sorry, yeah, I got my batteries mixed up. Does anybody use buy batteries anymore? Isn't everything? Anyways,
I use Amazon.
I was going to say, Scotty, if you have kids, you need batteries. Let me tell you that.
I don't have kids. I have a
I
dog,
know.
and they just have chew toys. So
yeah.
But yeah, like, I mean, my thing is just like, just one of the funnier things yesterday was that whole Nemestikov thing, and then tracing it back to Mikey Esamont, and yeah, I mean, I think that was a mistake. I mean, that was a mistake to get rid of him. I think, if you asked Rick Bowness, and he gave you an honest answer away from this team, maybe in a few years when he's not the head coach of it or whatever. That was, it's little things like that, but those little things add up over time, right? You wanted depth players that actually could do something. And, I'd argue that Carson Kuhlman hasn't done much. I think they like Axel Johnson-Fjell because of his speed and all that. But, I mean, yeah,
multi-point game yesterday.
Yeah, he had a great game yesterday, don't get me wrong. But, they've been few and far between. And he hasn't been able to stick in the lineup too. I mean, he's the guy that they, and I would argue that he's better than Kuhlman or Manalainen right now and offers more to the team than that. But again, we're literally just talking about, fourth line guys and all that. And it's just like, yes, Rob, I do have a dog. She's down. I've posted photos all over the place with my dog. I mean, you can see it. So picture is not true or whatever that whole thing.
He's just playing some video games right now, right, Scott?
No. I was playing Call of Duty last night, but I was watching Formula One qualifying.
You playing Dave?
Today,
Dave plays a little COD as well.
Oh yeah, I'd wreck Dave. So
I actually play Fortnite. I'm not.
Yeah. That's one.
Wreck yourself before you check yourself, right?
That's right. Yeah.
The other way around. Ginsburg.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So I mean, yeah, I don't know how you put a bow on yesterday because it doesn't deserve one. Yeah. Yesterday was a bad day for this team, and I think a lot of fans understand that. I think there are some that they're happy to have the team here, and that's what it is, and that's fine. I mean, you're a fan; you get to do whatever you want. You can be happy that the team's here. You can pay your money to go watch the take. But I mean, if last night you paid hundreds of dollars to go to a game, if that game was here and your team's down 5-0 at one point, are you really that happy? I don't know, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the game's sold out tonight. It might be. It's McDavid. It's Saturday night. It's hockey night in Canada.
It's a must-win game, though, right, Scott? I know it's a cliche.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah.
I mean, how is it?
Because you might have Calgary 3 points behind you. You might have Calgary 3 points behind you by the end of the night if you don't win.
Well, there's no sign. I mean, that they're coming through this or anything. I mean, that's the thing to me.
No, because the sign that happened against LA. Yeah. Where you finally start scoring some goals, 5-on-5. I believe they got a power play goal in that game. Yeah. So you're starting to get some goals in the game, and you fight with them tooth and nail, and you give up a few leads, but you're still there, and then you lose in the shootout. But then, you think, okay, well, this team scored, so they're going to get some of that mojo back, the confidence, and all that. And then they just get actually trucked. They have absolutely trucked last night. I mean, you people say, oh, you look at the score at 6-3 and, is it that bad? All those goals came in garbage time. Let's not get it. They were there. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Jets showed up at 5-0 and they scored a goal and then they gave up one more goal. So it was 6-1, and then they scored two kind of close when Calgary was already off, trying to get on the charter to come over here to Winnipeg tonight for the game. Like, I mean,
once the third period wave started, Scotty, the game was over.
I mean, you could tell the Oilers had taken the foot off the gas. I mean, at that point, exactly. At that point, why would you play in the third period? You have to go. They're not going to score 6 goals in the third. The Jets scored 3. That's only half of the number of the goals they needed. And so Edmonton's conserving energy for tonight, whereas the Jets last night were trying to make it not look as embarrassing as it was. And yeah, it was a bad game. I don't know what happens tonight, because here's the thing. I mean, we can ask the chat here. Can anybody here explain, what team is actually going to come out tonight? What Jets team is going to show up tonight? Is it going to be the team that showed up last night, or the team that showed up after the loss to the Devils or the loss to the Islanders? Like what team is showing up here? What response is this team going to give you? And I don't think anybody can.
I
don't think anybody can do that. So
I mean, if you don't think that it's the team that's been bottom 5 in this league for the past, almost 2 months, then you have more optimism than I do. I mean, and good on you for having that optimism. But I mean, it's this team just doesn't seem to have anything going for it. And
then you start. And the other thing is, you start maybe Paul Maurice was right. As bad as it seemed to be at the end for Paul Maurice, and basically quit on this team after that Buffalo game because the team just wasn't playing.
Yeah,
is Rick Bowness now in that point where it's just have you watched any of the Rick Bowness interviews as of late? And it almost looks he's bewildered. Yeah. What is he? What have I? He's probably think what haven't I tried? I try to be angry with this team. I've tried to hold them their feet to the fire. I've tried to hold them to accountability. I've tried to coddle them at times. I've tried.
Well, what he hasn't done, Scotty? He hasn't sat his $4.5 million guys. A couple of
sure. Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe that's the last thing. Maybe, but he's sat those guys during the game. He's limited ice time during the game. He's tried to send a message to those guys in the media through, in the dressing room and private. What do you do? I mean. If I was Rick Bowness, I'd be out of ideas. Well, what do you do? It's at some point it is on the players. I mean, that is true. You
look for a lifeline from your general manager, and that lifeline didn't come.
And again, I don't even think it's as much as you're looking at a lifeline, but you're looking at the last 4 or 5 years, and you're wondering, these signs have been here for a while now, and why weren't they addressed sooner? And at the end of the day, you're okay, you can blame the players all you want, but if you've seen this year over year for a while that your core isn't working and you haven't done a thing to change the core, that isn't on the players. I mean, every player, at the trade deadline, when you ask them what they want more, it says, walk down a couple of doors in the office and ask the GM, because they have no choice in that. The players can't fix this team in terms of its composition and what's ailing it, in terms of its core. They can keep trying to win with what they have, but at the end of the day, where does the buck stop on this team? It stops with the general manager identifying that there might be an issue and going out and making a change to fix it. And so you can blame the players all you want for what's going on, and they do deserve some of the blame, of course. I mean, they're paid to play and all that stuff, yada yada yada. But if you've seen this trend, and we can certainly call it a trend, over the years of this team you go back to the 18-19 season where they disintegrated down the stretch. There was a lot of issues that season in fighting and all that kind of stuff. I mean, if you can see those things and you ignore them, or you think, oh no, everything will be better, Blake, we would take the captaincy from Blake Wheeler, or Blake Wheeler had this epiphany that he's been too hard on guys like he did in that interview with Sarah. Maybe he's got to take a different approach and all that, or whatever it is, right? I mean, again, this team doesn't have Patrick Laine because I don't think he was really accepted into the core of this team. Mm-hmm. This team has let down Connor Hellebuyck. This core of this team has let down Connor Hellebuyck. Connor Hellebuyck is part of the core of this team, but they've let him down over and over again. They've leaned on him. They've used him as a crutch, as an excuse for it for their bad play, to cover up their bad play. I mean, again, a lot of this just points up. It points past the head coach, and it's down the hallway at the GM. And at that point, what do you do? Because if you're not willing to change the general manager, I don't know what you expect to change around here. And after 12 years and not a whole lot of success around here, you can keep kicking the can of, I got this nice shiny, it's funny that, Kevin Cheveldayoff talked about, shiny new toys and all that at the trade deadline. I'd argue this team has leaned on their shiny new toys that they trot out after drafting them every year. And as an excuse to, let's kick the can down the road. Let's wait till, Nikolai Ehlers is ready and Josh Morrissey is ready and Kyle Connor is ready and all these guys are ready. And now you're starting to think, well, are they going to talk about, is Rutger McGroarty ready and Chaz Lucius ready and Billy Hanel ready and all these guys. And so it's just like, it almost seems cyclical, right? It's just, it keeps happening and going. And I don't know. I don't know the direction of this team. I don't have answers for fans. I asked the question, at the end of last year, what's the vision? He didn't really get an answer. And yesterday, I didn't think there was a whole lot of answers either. I thought it was a lot of, we're fine. We addressed the holes on this team and all that. And then, that night they go out and, I know I get that Nemestikov wasn't in the lineup, but he wasn't fixing that. He wasn't plugging, he wasn't bailing out the sinking ship last night himself. And, he's going to bring versatility to the lineup and all that stuff, but is it enough? I mean, it's tough. I imagine this is a very, very, very tough time for a fan right now, because you don't know, and you're kind of worried that your team, it's all slipping by and you're missing the boat, and a lot of things going on right now, and it's a tough time for this team, and even that they're in a playoff race, the dark cloud that hangs over this team right now, it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be there. It shouldn't. That shouldn't be the case 12 years into this, where we're talking about these sorts of things.
Scott Billick covers the Winnipeg Jets for the Winnipeg Sun. His work from Post Media as well. He's a great friend of ours, and he's insightful, and he's in touch with everything that's going on with this organization. Scotty, thank you, brother. We'll see you later on tonight. Enjoy the contest. It should be certainly an interesting vibe in downtown Winnipeg later on tonight.
Yeah,
well,
appreciate it, guys. Yep,
thanks, Scotty.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Scotty. There you go, Scott Billick joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We'll head to break, come back with more Jets talk. Then Derek Van Diest joins us to talk about the Oilers at the bottom of the hour. Stay with us, much more to come. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. It's a Saturday morning. You're watching the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hi, Ez. A strange question for you. But why are you lying on the ground being crushed by a piano?
Well, Drew, I definitely tried to carry this baby grand piano down the stairs by myself, and somehow I failed miserably.
Right. I'm sorry. That was a silly question on my part. My apologies. Would you like me to call Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage to help you move the piano? They are the most experienced piano moving company in Winnipeg, after all.
Yes, please call Rolly's and hurry. This piano is very, very heavy.
Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage offers stress-free residential moving services while taking great care of your personal belongings, including your piano. At Rolly's, no job is too big or too small. For more information, visit rollys.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly, see lindenmarketdental.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal. Starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you on this Saturday morning. Big thanks to Scott Billick for joining us. Eloquent as always in breaking down and discussing what ails this Winnipeg Jets team. One item we haven't had a chance to get to over the last couple days worth of shows, and again, we'll be back tonight at around 8:45 with the post-game show following the Jets and the Oilers. It may be an angry one, it may be one filled with a little bit of more optimism, but it should certainly be interesting nonetheless. Join myself and Dave Minuk for that a little bit later on tonight. Logan Stanley's trade request, and let's take it on its face value. Andy Strickland, a friend of ours, certainly knows what he's talking about when he reports something like that. To me, that is just so funny. I just couldn't stop laughing when I heard that Logan Stanley is demanding a trade request, at this point in his career. A guy who really has been given every opportunity and then some to crack this Winnipeg Jets lineup and to become a regular in the lineup. The team has given him so much rope that he's never been able to reel in the job, decides that he needs to go public with a trade request. To me, the entire thing was hilarious. Just completely out to lunch and out to touch, as well as hilarious from my perspective. What did you guys think when you saw that and that news come down the pike, Ezzy?
It was unexpected, and we talked about this with Scott. Like, the reality is, on this Jets roster, Dylan Sandberg has passed Logan Stanley. Logan Stanley is no longer your best option on the third pair there, and that's the reality. So I was shocked because, first off, you don't expect a defenseman like that to ask for a trade just because he's not a top player, right? Like, you don't hear a lot of 6th or 7th defensemen asking for a trade, let alone guys that have been drafted by the Jets and spent their entire careers with the Jets, right?
Right.
But I just don't like Logan Stanley. There's a difference here between Logan Stanley as a person and as a character and as a hockey player here. I think Logan Stanley is absolutely an NHL player. I think his ceiling is probably a third pairing defenseman at the NHL level. Like, he's 24 right now. And he's a guy that he can be physical, but it's kind of odd sometimes when he picks to be physical. It kind of comes and goes. It's not a consistent physicality. Sometimes Logan Stanley's out there and he just looks like a big defenseman who's really not doing much. Like, he's a replacement level player, and the analytics back that up, right? So I don't know what's going to happen with Logan Stanley. Dave, I don't know if Chevy was close to moving him yesterday or a couple days ago. But I don't know what his long-term future is with the Jets, especially considering you've got Ville Heinola and Declan Chisholm on the left side there too.
Yeah, I think you have the depth in the organization that you can replace him. I think that the fact is that the Jets have put a lot of time and effort into him. They did the same thing with Johnny Kovacevic, where they drafted, developed him, had him playing for the Moose for years, and then kept Kyle Capobianco inexplicably over.
Still doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, I know. But I mean, again, we talked about it. I know. And look, he's playing. I just highlighted the comment. I mean, Kovacevic is playing a regular role in Montreal. They told him to get himself a place there and to get comfortable because he's going to be part of that young Montreal core for years to come. Look, I said it when I remember it was a call-in show on the 1290 days, and someone said, is Logan Stanley a bust? I said, well, no. I mean, he probably could be a third pairing guy for, an organization for 6 to 8 years, maybe as high as second. Look, the reality is,
he's a bit of a bust based on where he was drafted. But the reality is, we talk about this all the time. It doesn't matter where you're drafted once you're in the NHL. Like, you're in the NHL. So I think that stigma of, remember, because the Jets, well, of course you remember, Dave, we were there in Buffalo in 2016 when they took Laine second overall, right?
Yeah.
So they traded up for that pick. So I think he's never been able to, at least with the Jets fan base, it seems like he's never been able to really shake that connection between him being drafted 17th overall. So in that sense, like, okay, call it a bust, whatever. I hate the boomer bust thing. He's not the best left side option right now on the Jets. There's 3 other players, or 4 really, because Ville Heinola, I think we would all agree, is ahead of Logan Stanley on the depth chart. So it looks like, again, this is nothing against Logan Stanley personally. It looks like right now, Dave, sorry to cut you off here and steal your thunder. It appears like, a change of scenery is the best thing for Stanley right now.
Yeah, and I think the most important point, and I wrote about it on a little website called thelegalcurve.com, it's the truth is that people need to realize guys ask for trades all the time. and they don't materialize. Like Evander Kane played through how many years in Winnipeg asking every single year for a trade. There's a lot of guys who ask for trades that never come to be. So it's not like and to be honest with you, that's not a castigation of Winnipeg. It happens in every organization throughout the course of the NHL, whether you're in Tampa, Florida, or if you're in wherever. Guys are unhappy with their roles and want things to change. And again, they, as much as anybody else, live in instant gratification society where we, need these guys to be this, and this. And the fact of the matter is, look, the Jets lost a player because they held on to Logan Stanley because they didn't obviously, decide that they didn't want to take a risk. But the problem is they're putting themselves into a similar position next year, right? Next year, they're going to have, the left side, let's be realistic. What's your left side of the Jets next year? Josh Morrissey, Dylan Sandberg, Brendan Dillon. Okay. Well, Declan Chisholm, who I would argue is probably your best skating defenseman by far. I think he's a better skater than Heinola. And I think offensively he's maybe a shade below Heinola. I think defensively he's better. But I think that Declan Chisholm, he's no longer like Ville Heinola. The problem with Ville Heinola, his biggest problem is that he's waiver exempt for next year as well.
Right.
So the reality is people say, well, he can't be in the AHL again next year. Well, he could. Now the thing is, the key is, and they've been asking him to do it at the AHL level a little bit, is play on his right side and give them a little more right side option than what they have right now in the organization from a depth perspective, because the only guy really is Leon Gavanke, who's, again, no longer waiver exempt, but he obviously cleared waivers already this year. But I'm just saying that you've got Leon Gavanke and Simon Lundmark is a project, the 2020 second rounder. So you might have to get guys like Declan Chisholm and Ville Heinola to flip over to their right side, which is fine. But I'm just saying that you right now are going to be in a position next year where you could lose Declan Chisholm. If you're not going to play him, like Kyle Bianco is most likely not going to be there. But you have to be able to make decisions on your team and evaluate your team and where this team is going to go. And again, like Declan Chisholm was an AHL All-Star, not by accident, right? It's not like a participation trophy where you have to pick one guy. Okay, he's good enough. We'll give it to him. He's a very good defenseman. And so I'm just saying that you don't want to run into a situation where you have literally spent years of your time, your energy, and your money to invest in a player and then to just lose him for nothing like they did with Johnny Kovacevic. And again, I think it'd be a mistake to lose out on a guy like Declan Chisholm. Now, look, I understand they have to come out and play in the training camp and they have to excel. But I'm just telling you that you don't want to run into a situation again next year where you kind of have this very odd logjam of guys
develop and lose.
Well, exactly. So look, I mean, do they need to do something? No. I mean, obviously Kevin Cheveldayoff didn't hear what he liked from any potential offers, if there were any. And I agree, Drew, like it's kind of like, again, if Logan Stanley was the Logan Stanley after the COVID year when he came out and he was gangbusters and everybody was like, wow, Logan Stanley looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. And he did. And again, like I said, I always thought him as a third pair 6-7 guy, but suddenly he looked like a 4-5 guy the way he kind of came out after that kind of unusual season. He obviously had a good time training, but it's fallen off again. And you could say, well, it's not because, I mean, look, how many games did he play last year? 50, I mean, 70. I think he played 77 maybe last year. Like he played a lot of games. It was either 58 or 77. It was a bigger number.
It was more than just a small sample size.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that he had the opportunity last year.
Was 58.
58. Okay. So I knew it was one or the two. But the point is that he had that chance and he didn't solidify himself in that role. And now, as I said, a guy like Dylan Sandberg has moved past you. And again, the organization from an asset management perspective has to be smart and say, okay, well, we can't afford, like Ville Heinola, whatever, you've got protection there, but you can't afford to lose guys for nothing. You're not getting Declan Chisholm through waivers. Not one NHL. I'm telling you right now, there's 0% chance if they put him on waivers, he's getting through waivers.
Well, again, because he's cheap and he can skate, and there's plenty of teams in this league that we know who are so cost conscious that they are willing to take a flyer on a young player who just might have some upside. I mean, the Jets did it with in putting a claim in for Janssen Fialbi. I mean, and Chisholm, is a young defenseman. You shouldn't give young defensemen are what you can't lose for nothing. So it is still, if you want to talk asset management and everything else this season, Kevin Cheveldayoff has done a terrible job about it, losing Kovacevic for nothing. That was inexplicable when it happened 6 months ago and remains inexplicable today. It remains just a horrible.
And Esimont is even worse because Esimont was actually having an impact on the roster. All due respect to Kovacevic, he only played a handful of games on the roster. So losing Esimont, in my opinion, was worse.
Well, they're both terrible. You lose guy, and then you have to go in and basically reacquire the guy that another team traded for to get him. I mean, it's just like, there's been a lot of managerial malpractice this season with regard to the Winnipeg Jets and how they've used and the decisions that they've made. And that in and of itself is adding to the frustration that everyone is seeing and the questions, legitimate questions about where this team is going and where this franchise is going and Kevin Cheveldayoff's job in stewarding this franchise moving forward. Those are legitimate questions that these moves have only exacerbated. When we come back, Derek Van Diest of Post Media is going to join us for more on tonight's Oilers-Jets rematch, last night's game as well. Stay with us. Saturday morning, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. More Jets talk to come. We're live on YouTube.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hi, Ez. A strange question for you. But why are you lying on the ground being crushed by a piano?
Well, Drew, I definitely tried to carry this baby grand piano down the stairs by myself, and somehow I failed miserably.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was a silly question on my part. My apologies. Would you like me to call Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage to help you move the piano? They are the most experienced piano moving company in Winnipeg, after all.
Yes, please call Rolly's and hurry. This piano is very, very heavy.
Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage offers stress-free residential moving services while taking great care of your personal belongings, including your piano. At Rolly's, no job is too big or too small. For more information, visit rollys.com.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go,
"We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?"
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Bottom of hour number 2. We're back on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Reminder, the marathon of Illegal Curve shows continues with the post-game show tonight, 8:45. Give or take, that myself and Dave M will discuss everything to do with the Winnipeg Jets and the Edmonton Oilers. The Jets looking for redemption after what was obviously just a disaster of a game last night in the Alberta capital. The Jets back on home ice looking to let their home fans have something to cheer for. We've talked so much about the trade deadline. We talked about last night's game, obviously, on the post-game show last night. What do you guys think the Jets are going to do maybe different tonight in terms of some of their lineup decisions? Because I just don't see them trotting out the same players again that they did last night, given the results that they got last night. I think it's time almost for just a full sail change in the approach. Now, obviously, we don't know the health status of Pierre-Luc Dubois. He didn't play last night. We don't know if Nemesnikov is going to be able to be in the lineup tonight. They just announced he's going to wear number 7 for the Jets. So he's got a number. Whether or not that means he's got a number that's going to be in the lineup tonight.
So he's going to play like Keith Tkachuk.
Move over Dmitry Kulikov.
Well, by the way, how funny would have it been if the Jets had reacquired Kulikov? That would have been my favorite. I mean, first of all, the Penguins, it's a horrible trade. I mean, is Dmitry Kulikov any different than it's the same Kulikov that I remember from a bunch of years ago who wasn't that good,
trade's not going to have any impact on how the Penguins do in the playoffs.
But I mean, it's
so,
like when
it's a terrible trade, but it's just not. It's a inconsequential trade as far as I'm concerned.
It's kind of like when the Penguins traded for Nathan Beaulieu, and the contingency on the trade was that he needed to on the pick story was that he needed to play like X number of games and X number of playoff games, and I was like, okay, well that's basically a trade for nothing. Right. That's a dump.
They gave up a 3rd round pick for him. I'm like, how is Kulikov still worth a 3rd round pick? I just don't quite understand that at all.
Analytics actually aren't bad.
Yeah, I was gonna say actually, Drew. I think look as a guy who can be there as depth,
pairing guy. Yeah.
I mean, the whole point. What have we talked about? Is that the Jets needed to add depth to their defensive group. Now, we said it was on the right side, but the fact is that, you can add veteran depth. If you need him to go into the lineup, you need him to go into the lineup. Penguins are hot right now, so who knows?
So let me go back to my original question I somehow managed to distract myself, which is always a good thing to be doing. What sort of changes are you expecting for tonight? So we know that Hellebuck didn't play the 3rd period last night. Is he your starting goaltender? We'll start there, Dave.
Yeah, he is. Oh, okay, sorry. I didn't realize you were throwing to Dave. Yeah,
I was throwing to Dave. I want Dave in here. You keep rambling on.
Let Ezzy go. I spent the whole last as you go. I'm chatted out.
All right. Yeah, I think there's a good chance it's Hellebuck tonight, and I think that was actually smart. The game was over. It was 4-0 after 2 periods, right? So and Riddick allowed a couple garbage time goals. So I mean, that was, I think, with the intention of saving Hellebuck for tonight's rematch. So I would I would expect Hellebuck to play. I mean, I don't think it's like 99.9% certainty. As far as moves go, Drew, I mean, there are it's tough to think that both Pierre-Luc Dubois and Mason Appleton are coming back in the lineup. I don't know
Appleton can't.
Option. Right, exactly. So it's Dubois. And so I have no idea if what has changed between last night and right now. I don't know if you can necessarily expect Dubois to be in the lineup tonight. But the moves that they would make, guys, would not have a huge impact on the way this team plays. I think Sam Gagner is going to go in tonight. I think Dylan Samberg is going to go in tonight. So Samberg obviously goes in for Stanley, and Sam Gagner probably goes in for Manalainen. I don't think Rick Bowness, I don't think he would have loved the cross-check to the head of, was it Philip Broberg yesterday? Yeah. So I would expect Sam Gagner to go in, and there's the connection, right? He used to play for the Oilers, so maybe that's a little bit of a motivation for him. So yeah, I would expect Gagner and Samberg to go in for Stanley and Manalainen, and then maybe Nemesnikov. I'm not sure, if he's in town yet, or if there's any visa issues, but that would certainly be a boost for the bottom 6 if Nemesnikov played tonight.
Yeah, I mean a boost. Yeah, but then so
Derek Van Diest is logging in right now, by the way.
Okay, great. So Derek's going to join us momentarily for his insights onto the Oilers in last night's game and the rematch tonight. But Dave, then is it time to look? The top 6 we know is a bit of a mess right now with the Dubois injury, which certainly has thrown things for a loop. Mm-hmm. So, but is it time to maybe look at that and try and fix that and change that up from last night as well? I mean, it's just been such a bizarre sort of sequence of events. Hold that thought. We're going to welcome to the program Derek Van Diest from Post Media. He covers the Edmonton Oilers.
How's it going, guys?
Good. How are you, Derek?
Good.
Obviously brought you on, talk about last night's Jets-Oilers game, talk about the rematch tonight, talk about the trade deadline, everything along those lines. I mean, you watched the game last night, and it was definitely one-sided. It was definitely men against boys. Is this... the Oilers, they're playing well. They obviously they beat the Leafs the other night. Is this a team that, with the addition of Ekholm to their lineup, is really sort of feeling their mojo now and feeling that this is that with the wide open West, there's no reason why they shouldn't be right at the forefront of the teams that can win it?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that happened with the Edmonton Oilers. The first one is they were able to move Jesse Puljujarvi. Now, Jesse Puljujarvi was kind of a polarizing figure here in Edmonton. Right. He's a player with all kinds of skill and talent, but just hasn't been able to produce the way the Oilers were hoping he could produce. And the Oilers were really they had a lot of patience with this player, hoping that he would come around, but he never did. So what happened with Jesse Puljujarvi is being able to move that $3 million contract. Then they were able to make some moves at the trade deadline, like bringing Ekholm in here. And that really solidified that defensive base. Like, he's such a talented player. I've only seen him play 2 games, but he's so strong in his own end. He's so effective. He moves the puck so well. And what he's doing is really settling down guys like Evan Bouchard and Philip Broberg. And he's really kind of elevated their game as well. So he's kind of solidified that back end, because that was what was really hurting the Oilers. It was their back end. They couldn't get the puck out of their own, keep the puck out of their own net. They would score 5 goals at one end and allow 6 at the other. And that was becoming a big issue. So he's really solidified that back end. And then also those extra minutes of ice time that Puljujarvi was using up, it eventually whittled down to about 5.5, 6 minutes. But now that's been given to other guys, and other guys have taken advantage of that. And you look at example, Kailer Yamamoto. He had a goal and 2 goals and an assist last night. He's making the most of that extra ice time. And I think that's what's kind of freed up the Oilers a little bit. They have a lot of speed in that lineup. And to me, last night, the Jets won. They were throwing the puck away unbelievably. Like, some of those turnovers were just incredible. I'm still that DeMello turnover still on the Nugent Hopkins goal. It's like he was centering the puck to him. He gave it right back to him in the slot. So that really cost him. But I think right now that this team is really starting to believe in itself. And I think just it was about shoring up defensively, and that's what Ekholm does for this club.
Just sticking with Ekholm, because we have to address Ekholm, because he's a guy that we've been talking about would be perfect on the Jets for years now. Obviously, that with seeing him in the Central Division going back to the 2018 second round series between the Jets and the Predators, and you mentioned that it's a perfect fit for this team. What about the return, though? Because I guess it's a 2-part question with the return, because they gave up a lot. And Reed Schaefer went right after Brad Lambert. And I asked Drew, Dave, Reed Schaefer was a guy, after speaking with Craig Button and how high he was on Reed Schaefer, Edmonton kid, he's having a good season with the Seattle Thunderbirds, big guy. They gave up a lot, right? Like Tyson Barrie, first-round pick, Reed Schaefer. I mean, it's not a coincidence Reed Schaefer was included in that deal. Nashville clearly, wanted to add to their prospect pool. So were Oilers fans okay with the return, considering that they finally got their left side shutdown defenseman?
I think that's a wait and see question to see how well Reed Schaefer does in the NHL. He's known pretty well in these parts because last year the Edmonton Oil Kings played the Seattle Thunderbirds in the WHL final, so they got a really good look at Reed Schaefer, and I think a lot of people really liked what he brought to the table. Now, whether or not he actually goes and becomes a legitimate NHL player, I think there's still some questions about him. I think his foot speed was the biggest question coming in here. He's a talented guy. He's a physical guy, but does he have the foot speed to play in the NHL? Now, basically, the Oilers gave up 2 first-round picks because they gave up a first-round pick and Reed Schaefer for this player. But I think a lot of people were saying, hey, this is the window. The Oilers' window is about 4 or 5 years. You look at Draisaitl's contract's going to come up. McDavid's contract's going to come up. And I think if it pays off, then it doesn't matter, I think, that they gave up so much with Tyson Barrie and two first-round picks, essentially, for this player. If this player helps them get over that hump, if they can get back to that Western Conference final and this player makes them competitive in that Western Conference final and then get into the Stanley Cup final, I think a lot of people will be very happy with that trade. And I think if they think Ekholm is the last piece of that puzzle, which early on, this is early returns. It's only been 2 games. He looks like he might be. I think people will be happy with that return. And then just look at the history of the Oilers' first-round picks. They've thrown away a lot of first-round picks. So I think and it'll be a late first-round pick if the Oilers do well as well. So I think in that sense, a lot of people aren't too upset with what they gave up to get this player.
Derek, when we have someone on from Edmonton, we have to talk about the first overall pick. Of course, I'm not talking about the 2015 first overall pick, Conor McDavid. I'm talking about the first overall pick from 2011, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I mean, despite the gift that Dylan DeMello did give him yesterday, he is having his best offensive season. I believe this is his 11th or 12th season in the NHL. So he's been such a great story. And
thanks for making me feel really old, Dave. 11th year already for the Nuge. That's crazy.
And so the point is that, he's just revitalized his career, and it's amazing to watch from afar. But what have you seen from him this year that's allowed for him to have this level of success that he hadn't achieved to date?
Well, it's funny because he came in with high expectations, obviously being a first overall pick. In his first couple of years, he was a highly offensive player. That's pretty much all he did. And then he kind of reinvented himself with this shutdown checking center where you could throw out there and play against everyone. And I think his game has always kind of been a work in process. He's always getting better defensively, and then somehow that offense is stalled on him. But I think he's really making the most of the fact that he's kind of like the second line guy. He's playing the second tier guy, and when he's playing with McDavid, he's playing with one of the best players in the world. So the Oilers for the longest time were so dependent on him for offense that's all they had. They had him and Taylor Hall, and they didn't have much else. But now the Oilers have so many offensive weapons. When you look, and then if you get, Evander Kane back in the lineup, you get those the season Zach Hyman's having, obviously with McDavid and Draisaitl. That's really freed up Nugent Hopkins to play against second and third pairing defensemen, and I think he's really taken advantage of that. His offensive game has gone to a new level. His shot is the best I've seen in a long, long time. He's getting that puck off, and he's picking corners, and he's just kind of really developed. And we still call him kind of the baby face assassin. He doesn't look like he's aged. He still looks like he's 17, 18 years old. But he's just kind of every year continuing to just grow and improve one facet of his game. And I think you're really seeing the returns now. And now apparently he's become an enforcer at a pugilist. I don't know if you guys saw what he did to Justin Hall the other night. He's throwing the uppercuts in Justin Hall. I think the team really had a kick out of that, how he jumped in after Hall hit Yamamoto behind the net. So he's really kind of developed all aspect of his game. And this is a guy that continually works. He didn't sit on his laurels. He didn't say, hey, I'm the number one overall pick. I'm just going to play the game. He really wanted to work on his game. And you see he's kind of an all-around player right now. And I think a lot of people are extremely happy with the season Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is having.
Derek Van Diest of Post Media, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, discussing the Oilers. The Oilers-Jets rematch goes later tonight in downtown Winnipeg. Illegal Curve post-game show right around 8:45 tonight. Derek, playoff time, goaltending becomes such a key factor. You can't let in the softy that maybe you can get away with during the regular season. Why is the Oilers goaltending good enough to win in the playoffs?
Well, I don't know if it is right now. That's the main concern for this hockey club. They thought they had shored up their goaltending by bringing Jack Campbell in here, and he just hasn't been able to find his way. He just hasn't been able to get settled in. Right now, what we're seeing with Jack Campbell is that he'll let in a bad goal, and he seems to let that fester, and he seems to let that bother him. And before you know it, he's let in 2 bad goals, and then 3 bad goals, and then it just kind of seems to snowball on him, and he hasn't been able to really find his game. Like the Oilers are really hoping he'd come in here and be a legit number one guy, and just be. You don't have to be spectacular to play on this hockey team because you're going to get 3 or 4 goals from the Oilers every night. So all you got to do is just not give up 3 or 4 goals. You got to just get your goals against average under 3, and you're probably going to win more often than not. So he's really struggled. Fortunate for the Oilers, Stuart Skinner has been able to come in here. This is his rookie season, and he's completely opposite in terms of makeup when it comes to goaltenders. Nothing seems to bother him. He's just such a laid-back guy, relaxed guy. He lets in a bad goal. He's forgotten about it. He's moved on to the next goal. Right now, he's really picked up the ball, and he's taken over the starter's role from Jack Campbell. And I think the Oilers are really fortunate that Stuart Skinner, and Stuart Skinner, he's developed the right way. He started in the East Coast League. He's worked his way up to the NHL. So he's gone through the entire process. He's done through all the steps. But right now, Stuart Skinner is carrying the ball for the Edmonton Oilers, and they're hoping that Jack Campbell can eventually find his game. But it's been such a long time that Campbell's had some good stretches, but he hasn't really won over the confidence of the team and the fan base here. So they're going to go with Stuart Skinner for a while. Now, whether Stuart Skinner is good enough at playoff time, he's been good enough for now. Whether he's good enough at playoff time, that remains to be seen. But again, the Oilers goaltending doesn't have to be lights out. They're not going to be beating teams 1-0, 2-1. They're going to be scoring 4 or 5 goals a night. So all the goaltenders have to do is just not let in a bad goal every night and keep their goals against average under 3. And odds are the Oilers are going to win. They just have so much offense, and you can't take a penalty against this team. Like that power play is absolutely deadly. The goal that Draisaitl scored yesterday, he's scoring goals from the goal line, and I think he had this much room.
That was an incredible
that 6th goal. And
he also had time to put the net back on the moorings.
Exactly, that's something I've never seen before. Put the net back. No one seemed to notice the net was off. He put the net back, and then his feet would be behind the goal line, and to be able to pick that spot is unbelievable. So right now he's starting to really get going as well. So that's when it comes to goaltending. You just have to be average. You don't have to be outstanding goaltending, and it'll be fine for the Oilers. So I think that's what they're looking at right now because they don't have an outstanding goaltender. Stuart Skinner is just getting the job done for now.
Derek, I wanted to ask you about the third line of the Oilers, right? Because here in Winnipeg, we've talked a lot about Adam Lowry. I'm sure that you've heard of his goal scoring struggles, 30 plus games. Not sure exactly what it's at, 33 games, 34 games, whatever. Dave's giving me fingers, so it might be more than 34 games, but I mean,
35.
35, there you go. The third line has been an issue for the Jets, both the third and fourth lines, with Morgan Barron has been a fixture on that third line. And then you've had, guys like Mason Appleton and Carson Kuhlman. But for those who don't know, the third line of the Oilers, and correct me if I'm wrong, if this has been different, but for the most part this season, it's been Ryan McLeod, Warren Foegele, and Matthias Janmark. I'm sure that there's been some other players on that third line, but just looking at the offense, I mean, you've got 30 goals from those guys. And the Jets are nowhere close to that. And the question I had is how important has that been for the success of the Oilers? Because obviously Conor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman, like the top six, Kyler Yamamoto, the top six has never been an issue really for the Oilers. But some of that in the depth lines, third and fourth lines, have been an issue. So how important has it been for their success as of late and this year that they've had, a solid third line that, they can mix it up, but they can also contribute offensively?
Yeah, that's been huge for the Oilers this year. That's been a big part of their success. And I think we were doing the stats. I think the bottom six this year, they're plus 15 or 16 or something like that. And in the past years, they were even or minus. So basically, it was essentially if the top two lines weren't scoring 3 or 4 points a night, the Oilers weren't going to win. Now, I think they've really solidified that third line. Warren Fogel's come in, and he struggled a little bit, but now he's really found his game. And McLeod
can really skate. His skating is very impressive.
That's the thing. That line can skate. They have guys that can skate. McLeod can fly. Vogel can fly. And Yarmark's really he's such a veteran guy. He had to start the year in the AHL just because of the Oilers' salary cap issues, and then they were able to kind of fix those salary cap issues, bring him back up. And he's really kind of stabilized that third line. He's got a really good veteran presence. And he's another guy. He's a veteran guy, but he can skate. And so that line really creates a lot of problems on the rush. And basically they're doing is be solid defensively, get turnovers, and head the other way. And that's they're doing that successfully right now. And that's really helping the Oilers. And it's taking a lot of pressure off those top guys that, they are scoring 3 or 4 points every night, but they don't have to win this year. As opposed to past years, if McDavid didn't get a goal and 2 assists, the Oilers were probably going to lose. It's not the case this year because those guys are contributing. Like I said, I think they're plus 15 or plus 16 this year when they go out there. So I think they have a lot of confidence in that third line. And if you can get basically the third line is out there to kind of fill the time for the first and second line, right? And you just want to be even when you're a third line player. But when those guys are plus 14, plus 15, they're going to get more ice time. They're going to get more opportunity. And right now they're healthy, which is one thing. I think both Vogel struggle with some health issues. I think McLeod had a bit of health issues. So they're healthy right now. They're flying and they're playing really confident. And then again, they're playing against bottom pairing units because the top pairing units are busy with the Oilers' first two lines. So they're getting the good matchups. They're getting the quality matchups, and they're making the most of those.
Well, Derek, one guy who gets the top pairing units and doesn't seem to matter who he's facing. And I have to ask, even though I asked about one first overall pick, now I'm going to go back to 2015 and ask you about Conor McDavid because we can't have a conversation with you right now and not talk about the historic season he is having right now. I mean, this is Gretzky, Lemieux, type numbers. We just don't see this in today's game. And what he's doing, the way he's elevated his game, you get the luxury of watching him, game in and game out and watching him in practice and watching the things he's doing. Has he made any sort of amendments to his, like what he did in the offseason to get to this level? Is it just more comfort with his Oilers? Because again, he's on pace for, I think, close to 160 points. He's 2 off his career high, in 17 fewer games. So, I mean, he's just reaching, we never thought, McJesus could reach another level, but he's reaching like 3 other levels. And it's just incredible because he's bringing the whole team along with him.
You know what? Have you guys seen that documentary, The Chicago Bulls, The Last Dance, where Michael Jordan's talking and he's saying how he took things personally? He's like, then that was kind of a motivator for him. I honestly think the fact that Conor McDavid was not a finalist for the Hart last year and everything was about Austin Matthews, and Austin Matthews is getting 50. Austin Matthews is the greatest goal scorer of all time. All this hype over Austin Matthews out of Toronto motivated Conor McDavid, and he said, "Oh, really? He's going to score 50? Watch next year. I'm going to score 60." And it's unbelievable how he's kind of motivated And every night he seems to be playing with his grudge. And I think, honestly, it has something to do with last year kind of getting snubbed by everyone who's talking about Austin Matthews. He wasn't even a finalist. It's unbelievable to me. And that really, I think, fired him up this summer. And he's going to say, okay, what? There's talk about Austin Matthews being a better player than I am. I'm going to end this right now. It's over. He's the best player of a generation. And the things he's doing night in and night out are unbelievable. I got the luxury of watching Gretzky play every night. I grew up watching Gretzky play every night. And he's one of those players that surprised you. He did something different every night. Every night it was something spectacular. And McDavid is like that as well. You think he's getting to a certain bar, and then he kind of creates a new bar, and he just keeps extending it. It's funny. One of my favorite conversations I had with Conor this year is I got a chance to go to the World Cup, and I covered the World Cup for Post Media, and he was really interested in the World Cup. He's interested in soccer. We came back and he wanted to know about Leo Messi because I saw Leo Messi play, and he said, "What's Leo Messi like? What's it like to watch him play?" And I said, "It's kind of like watching you play. It seems like you guys are watching the game from above and playing it from down low. He knows where everyone is at all times. You seem to do the same thing. He does everything at 100 miles an hour. You do everything at 100 miles an hour." He goes, "It's very much like watching you play." He got a chuckle out of that because he was really fascinated with Leo Messi. He loves Leo Messi, and so I see a lot of parallels in that, in the fact that they do look like they're playing the game from the press box, and they're actually down low. They're seeing the game 2 or 3 moves ahead, and they're doing it at 100 miles an hour. But I do think last season really motivated McDavid. He's like, "Oh, really? You guys are going to stump me? Watch what I'm going to do next year. Watch, I'm going to get 60 goals. I'm going to get 65 goals." And then all this talk. Because there hasn't been any. It's obvious he's the best player in the league right now. We haven't heard anything about Austin Matthews being rivaled with Conor McDavid like we did last year. And I think really, honestly, he took that personally, and he's using that to motivate him. And he wants to win. He wants to win. He wants to be in that category with Sidney and with McKinnon and those great players that they're great, but you have to win in this league. And right now he's really, really driving the bus.
Derek Van Diest covers the Edmonton Oilers for Post Media, the Jets, and the Oilers later tonight in downtown Winnipeg.
Did you see Huss in Qatar at all, Derek?
Hassan?
Hustler. Andrew Patterson from TSN 1290. He was there as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. We were hanging. Yes. Yeah. Andrew,
right
yeah. We were hanging out. I think we ran into each other at some of the Canada venues.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
that was it. Yeah, that was it.
That was a great question, Ezzy. Really,
that was the only guy that I knew that was in Qatar personally, so I just thought I'd get that in there.
Yeah. For sure.
Derek, thank you. Enjoy tonight's contest. We'll do it again real soon, buddy.
Sorry to end on a non sequitur there, Derek.
Completely
Sounds
random.
Good. Hey, appreciate you guys having me on. Sorry I jumped on a little late. Thanks for having me on.
Derek. Thank you.
Good, Derek. Thank you, buddy. There he goes, Derek Van Diest joining us on the program.
Hey, Huss was in Qatar. Derek was in Qatar.
Yeah, but he thought you said Hassan.
I mean, it was a real great question, though. I mean, given how we started the show, it's actually the perfect ending for the show. It couldn't possibly be better than that.
Drew, we can talk about ice cream and bridges again if you want.
Hey, look, I started the show by playing the wrong intro, so I really can't criticize you.
And it was
too
downhill
heavily,
from there.
Yeah, it sort of went downhill, then an uphill, and then it ended on a downhill. So that means we'll start the post game show tonight on an uphill, right there.
Yeah, with the Saturday. With the Saturday morning intro.
Okay.
Well, Drew, it looks like Dave's finally getting some light through those prison bars behind him.
Yeah, they're now after they finished waterboarding him, they're now sun blinding him. So it's going to be great.
Who said that? Who said that?
That's it for the Saturday morning Illegal Curve Hockey Show. A big thank you to Derek Van Diest. A big thank you to Scott Billick for joining us. A big thank you to all of you in the chat and who are watching us live on this Saturday morning. In case you missed any of the show, the immediate replay is available on YouTube. And of course, the podcast will be available probably within the hour or so as Dave M will do his.
Usually half an hour.
Half an hour. Usually you're pretty good at getting it up. We appreciate your efforts as per always.
I don't need Viagra to get it up.
If you haven't, good God almighty, if you haven't already done so, folks, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, leave us some feedback. We always love to hear what you have to say about the show. Leave that feedback on YouTube. Rate us and review us on all your favorite podcasting networks. Leave us some comments on iTunes and all that jazz as well. Reminder, post-game show later tonight, 8:45 or so. Dave and myself will discuss the Jets and the Oilers. It will be certainly an interesting conversation. You won't be there, you said. You already told us you're not coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't mention you. If you change your mind, I'll give you some props. I'll say
I'll be at the cottage having a few cold beverages. I'll be watching the game, maybe tuning in.
Okay, well, in that case, enjoy joining the chat for tonight's post-game show, if that's what you're
I've been
planning.
relegated to the chat today.
As he's got authority now, he could just join anytime he wants.
Oh,
From
good
wherever,
Lord Almighty!
from wherever he wants.
We might have to change that authority around. A big thank you to all the sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the Saturday show, the post-game show, and the website a possibility. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. Dave Hempstead in town tonight. His final 2 shows sold out, I believe, for most of the shows, but there might be some left. So get them at rumorscomedyclub.com. Our friends at Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, Grid Park, and The Keg. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. There you go. Frosty Winnipeg has it up there on the screen. He's doing his good work as he usually does.
Quickly, Drew, if anybody wants 2 tickets to the Moose game tomorrow, I've given away 2 already, but I've got 2 more. 2, it's the Wasack game, so that'll be the jerseys are going to be awesome. So if you want 2 tickets to the Moose game, send me a message, Dave@illegalcurve.com or IC Dave.
There you go. Dave's giving away tickets. Crazy Dave's ticket making machine was left on again. As per usual, it was an eventful night last night with the goalie goal and a goalie fight in the AHL as well. If you haven't seen that, the goalies for the Texas Stars and the Milwaukee Admirals duked it out last night. So an entertaining night in the AHL, less so in the NHL from the Winnipeg
Chicago Wolves goalie, by the way, fought Moose captain Jimmy Moloney as well.
There you go. So there was fights
and scored a goal.
Fights here, there, and everywhere. Thanks for everyone for joining us. We'll see you later on tonight. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show live on YouTube and all of our social media platforms.